Welcome to Let's Talk Love. Today, I enjoyed this conversation with Sylvester McNutt III. Sylvester is an author, speaker, podcast host, and certified yoga teacher. He has published 9 books covering topics like freedom, liberation, shame, people-pleasing, codependency, success, and deep healing. Today, we talk about his life, how he set out on a lifelong healing journey and now teaches ways we can all free ourselves from shame, love ourselves properly, and truly live our best lives. Sly is an excellent storyteller, and he does a terrific job teaching important life principles through story and language. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to Let's Talk Love, the podcast that brings you real talk, fresh ideas, and expert insights every week. Our guests are the most trusted voices in love and relationships, and they're here for you with tools, information, and friendly advice to help you expand the ways you love, relate, and communicate. We tackle the big questions, not shying away from the complex, the messy, the awkward, and the joyful parts of relationships. I'm your host, Robin Ducharme. Now, let's talk love. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk Love. I'm very excited to talk to our guest today about love, Sylvester McNutt III. Thank you for joining us, Sylvester.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's always a lovely thing when someone says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about something." Like, I think that's a good thing, you know?
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your name, first of all. So you've got a really great name, and your friends call you Sly. Your friends and family call you Sly. That's pretty great, eh?
So I have a, no one's ever asked about this. So I have a few nicknames. So
yes,
growing up playing sports, my teammates would call me McNutt, because you call your teammates your last name oftentimes. And then obviously with a last name like McNutt, you got to use that. In my family system, they actually used to call me Junior. And it was a weird story. Like, my grandmother, she started calling me Junior because she was saying that I was my father's junior, that I looked just like my dad. I'd always be with my dad. I'd act like my dad. But the thing is, I'm the third. And so when you follow it, it's typically the senior, the junior, and the third, fourth, fifth, and so on. So I remember being a young kid. And when I learned that, I'm like, hey, it doesn't make sense for you guys to call me Junior because I'm the third. My dad is actually Junior, so you should call me Trace or the third. And I used to just come up with names like related to the number 3.
Yeah.
So of course they never did it. Like, they never did it.
No, you can't choose your own nickname.
You can't. They just wouldn't do it. Like, my family didn't care. And then my coaches would call me Sly because Sylvester was too hard to say. When coaches are trying to yell, they need like a 1-syllable name to call you out. So they would call me Sly, and it kind of just stuck from there, where people would call me Sly. So
I love it. Yeah. I think of Sylvester Stallone, and then of course he's Sly, and you're Sly. It's all good. So your dad is Sylvester McNutt, and your grandpa's Sylvester McNutt.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat. That's great. So I'm so happy to talk to you. You are a prolific author. You're a coach. You're a speaker. I'm just excited to learn more about you and your career and your ideas, because I just finished reading Loving Yourself Properly. And my colleague, who also works on the podcast with me, read Free Your Energy. And there's 7 other books that we haven't read yet, but I'm interested to read those too, because there's a lot of profound ideas and ways to, I think, work with. It's about growth and change and becoming more of ourselves, right? So tell me, you say the best decision you ever made was to commit to the healing, presence, and joy in your life. One of the best decisions.
It broke up a little bit when you said that. Can you say it again?
One of the quotes in your book says, the best decision you ever made was to commit to healing, presence, and joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you make this decision? Like, was this like years in the making? Like, what precipitated you to be like standing, putting your flag down and being like, this is really where I need to make some shifts in my life and really focus on the healing, presence, and joy in your life?
Yeah. So my healing journey, I should say the first iteration of my healing journey was very serious. It required a lot of serious, focused energy. Because it really the pain that I was experiencing occurred when I was younger, when I was before being a teenager, in that transition from like 8 to 12 years old. And so you feel powerful at that age because you have a lot of ideas and you have the ability to observe what's going on around you, but you're powerless because you're not the decision maker. You're not paying any bills. You're not running the household per se. What you want or desire may be considered, but ultimately it's up to your parents or your caregiver to say, okay, this is what we're doing. And so while it's certainly a powerful position at that age, mentally and emotionally, it's actually powerless in a way, unless you're in an environment where they're empowering you. So in my specific situation, I definitely was empowered. My parents definitely empowered me from like intellectual perspective. There was a lot of pressure to read books and to do well in school and to perform. And so, I learned that if I performed well, I could achieve love through performance. Which we know can develop codependency, which at one point I did struggle with codependency, but I'm going to stay present to that area of my life so this can make sense. And then I remember being in school and, starting to like girls, not really knowing what that was. But I remember like there was this girl named Wendy and I really liked her, but like I didn't know what it was. I'm like, why do I keep looking at this girl? I just be in class looking at Wendy. And it was like, it was a weird thing because, no one ever talked about it. No one had a conversation with me like, hey, soon, you're going to start liking girls and, you might want to kiss a girl. You might want to hold her hand. Like, no one really talked to me about that. So as I'm like coming into a mature body, my hormones are changing. I'm really not knowing, what's going on. And then another thing that I was dealing with at the time too, and to be more specific about what was going on in the household is I went from like a perfect family system where my parents were working and happy and healthy as far as I could tell, to a lot of very destructive behaviors, a lot of passive aggressiveness, a lot of fights, a lot of arguing, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of verbal abuse, mental abuse, and physical abuse, which wasn't present. It went from literally like the perfect family system to it felt like war every day at home. And that's a big rupture in how you're perceiving the world. And so that's really like, what was going on. And it was just overwhelming. It was just confusing. It was overwhelming. Didn't really have anyone to talk to, about it, especially the parts about, the abuse that I was going through. Like I didn't have anyone to talk to about that. Just kind of dealt with it. And so for me, the healing journey became a very serious thing. It was like I have to get out of this. Like I have to escape. It became so bad for me that I remember running away from home. And the way I tried to do that was, this would have been, I was living in Arlington Heights. We left there my 7th grade. So this would have either been 6th or 7th grade. And riding home from school, it was really cold in Illinois. And I just didn't want to go home. It's not that I wanted to be outside and play. I didn't want to go home because it wasn't safe for me. I felt like I was walking on eggshells every day when I walked in the house. When you have 2 alcoholic parents, you have 4 parents. You have 4 parents. You have who they are sober and who they are when they drink. And if you know anything about people who get drunk often, they oftentimes have multiple people inside of them when they're drunk. You have the dad who's loving, then you have the dad who's a pissed off introvert and doesn't want to talk. You have the mother who's cracking jokes, and then you have the mother who's angry and is in resentment. So you may have 6 parents if you have 2 alcoholic parents, and it just got to be too much. It was just frustrating, and so I had this friend. His name was Jose, and he was from a Mexican family. And I told him, I said, man, I need to run away. And he asked me like, well, where are you gonna go? I was like, well, I don't know, like somewhere, just anywhere. Like I just can't be there. And he was like, well, I don't know if my mom would be cool with it, but if you want to just come over and like run away for the day, you could at least run away for the day. We'll see what my mom says. So I'm like, all right, cool. So, I had been to his house before and met his mom. She makes some really good tacos. And so we went over there and we didn't tell her that I was running away. We just were like, oh yeah, he's just coming over to play some games. So
and have the tacos.
Yeah. So she made us some food, and I remember at the time he had a Sega Saturn, which was a video game console that no longer exists. So we're like in the back playing Sega Saturn, and I just felt free. I just felt free knowing that I didn't have to go to that environment. It was the first time I really can say that I felt freedom. And of course, at that time, my mom knew all my friends and she knew exactly where they lived. So she came and haunted me down. Was not a fun car ride back, because my brother and sister were in the back seat. Now, just for context, at the time I was probably 13, and my sister would have been 6 or 7, and my youngest brother would have been 3. And so imagine it's wintertime, you're expecting your oldest kid to be walking in the door soon, and you don't see them, you don't hear from them. The bus goes by that they get off of every day, and then they don't walk in the door a few minutes later. So I imagine I probably gave my mom a heart attack with that "where the hell is my kid" moment.
Yeah.
And then like a couple hours went by, and then it probably went from, I should ask my mom about this, but it probably went from like fear of where's my kid to like I'm whooping my kid's ass as soon as I find him. That's probably what my mom was thinking. And so, then you got to put a toddler in the car and your 6-year-old, and I'm sure my sister's really smart, so I'm sure my sister was like, where's my brother at? My mom was probably frustrated, like, don't ask me where he's at. We're about to go find him. Because when I got in that car, no one said anything. It was my mom, my dad, and my younger brother and sister. No one said a word. It's like if you walk into your final exams in college, but you're late and everyone else is taking a test, and then they look up at you like, you're late for finals, bro. Like, that's how it felt. Yeah. And later, after they put my brother and sister down, my mom was like, so what were you doing? Where were you at? And I told her, I said, I had to run away from home. I didn't want to be here. And, that moment is when I realized, like, okay, I didn't have the language to know, hey, I need to heal or I'm about to heal. But I had enough awareness to recognize like something was wrong. Something wasn't where it should have been. So that's when my healing journey really started. And for the next like 7 to 8 years, it was a very, very serious journey. So like when you read me that quote, I can recognize why I would have put, opening myself up to joy, because there was at least a decade of my life where it wasn't joy. It was a very serious, focused, tunnel vision, dialed in, like concentrated effort to escape, free myself, and heal. And so now it's like, okay, now this version of my healing journey, I have to experience joy. Like I have to be able to laugh at a silly comedian on TV. Or if I trip and, tip over my tea, like I got to be able to laugh at myself. Like, oh, you clumsy dude. It's all right. It's not that big of a deal. So I feel like definitely now the joy piece, because I wasn't able to really appreciate that before, now I'm all in on joy.
Love it. So in your book, Loving Yourself Properly, I mean, the title says it all, right? It really is guiding the reader to learn ways to love yourself properly. I think there's so much talk, and there has been for as long as I can think about, in my like early teens when I started reading the books, right? In the Hay House books and all the authors and Louise Hay, the affirmations in the mirror, and, and there's just a huge industry around talking about loving yourself properly. But really, how do you do that? What are the skills? And how, because it's not fluff. This is serious stuff. And one of the ways I just love this story you share, Sylvester, at the beginning of your book, of your friend Summer, and how you're laying on the couch and, obviously you were that friend. It sounded to me like you were that friend that people would call and ask for advice from, right? So if you recall the story about Summer, can you tell it? Or, I mean, do you remember the story?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the cool thing about that is I try to so in music they have this thing called like a entendre. So you can do like a double entendre or triple entendre, which is where you can say the same thing and it can have multiple meanings. So like in that story, I wrote it as if I was talking to someone, named Summer. But then there's another correlation in there where it was happening in the summer, as well as there was a story about my professor. There was a professor who was Summers as well. I took a class in the summertime. And so I remember with the Summer I was referring to, her name was actually Amanda, but I had to change it for the book. So I had to say that her name is Amanda for my brain to remember what she was going through. But she was having, relational issues. And I remember sitting on my couch and she's just talking to me about these relational issues, but she just kept blaming the person. She's like, he doesn't do this. He doesn't do this. He's full of this and he's this and that. And like, she never, ever mentioned herself. She just complained. So, I was just sitting there listening. It was a real story. I was just sitting there listening. And I think I was playing FIFA on the Xbox. I was playing a game and talking to her. And, finally I was just like, okay, it sounds like the problems you're having in this relationship are actually like inner problems. Like they're your problems. Like when I'm talking to you, you're blaming this person and you're putting it all on this person, which is actually giving your power away. And I don't think you're recognizing your responsibility and participation in these problems that you are creating, that you are giving light to, that you are saying, okay, I want these problems. And like when I said that to her, she kind of was like, okay, damn, that's a gut punch. Because a lot of the times when we complain to our friends and family, a lot of the times we want to be coddled and we want to be agreed with. Like, that's right. I can't believe that person would say that to you. How dare them? I'm here for you. Like we want to know that people, like we want to know that we're not crazy. So to a degree, having someone agree with you is good, to a degree, because it's like, okay, I'm not as crazy as I thought I was. Yes. But then once, like we're often not expanding once we're only looking for agreeance. Yes. And so, I definitely wanted to, let her know, like, hey, I get what you're saying, but like, you're kind of the problem here too. And can you recognize that? And so that gut punch that I tried to do as safely as possible led her to, a deeper expansion. And we actually never talked again after that.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah, we had been friends for about 5 or 6 years. And that final conversation, I feel like people come into your lives for reasons that you may not know. Right. Yep. And one of my purposes, I feel like, is, I want to serve the people I know. Whoever I meet, I want to serve you, whether that's through laughter, getting some tea together, or, building a business together, going for a walk, whatever it is. Like we all have a purpose in each other's lives. And I feel like my purpose in her life was that conversation. Even though we had known each other 5 or 6 years, what happened after that conversation, because obviously we have social media now, she left that relationship and she went on a healing journey. And then she found a relationship that was more aligned with the complaints, right? With the complaints. Because the complaints that she had is, that's her soul yelling at her saying, hey, you're not living the life you're supposed to live. You're not aligned the way you're supposed to be aligned. And so she went on this journey and, and got in a much better relationship. But that better relationship was really the consequence of the better relationship she developed with herself. Yeah. At least in my opinion.
Yes. And you went on to write this book. So I just love how both of you had this, this relationship that gave you each something new in your lives.
Yeah. And so she gave me purpose because I told her, I was like, you know what? This is inspiring me. I'm going to write about this.
Yes.
So she served me too.
Definitely. And so this is something that you did say to her, which you just explained, but you said, what I see, the reflection that I'm getting right now from you complaining about this guy you're with, is that you have a problem with the relationship with yourself. that needs some care. What you need to focus on is your relationship to yourself, not the relationship you're in. And I was like, wow, that is really insightful and just well said. You said, I can hear that you have a problem with boundaries. You have issues with the way you're treating yourself. And it sounds like you have wounds that need attention. And the relationships in your life are trying to show you that. You need to look within and do some real healing and create a vision for how you want your life to be. I was like, whoa, yes. That is just awesome to have a friend just say like, this is what I'm hearing, right?
And before we move to anything else, I do want to say sometimes what comes up is, do I need to leave the current relationship I am in to do the deeper healing work that I need to do? And I don't believe that the answer is yes or no. I don't believe it's a black or white thing. No. It's a very colorful, nuanced thing, and so one of my beliefs about relationships is that we should be trying to create a vessel that supports both of our healings as we evolve and change. And so if you have a partner who is supportive, at least if they're supportive 60% of the time, to me, that's enough. I'm like, hey, out of 10 times, 6 times you got my back. 4 times, hey, maybe you don't, because whatever reason, like I'm cool with that. I don't expect anyone to have my back 100% of the time. But if you're coming in at 6 to 9% of the time, boom, we can hit it. So
definitely,
with her situation, she didn't have that. Like, she didn't have a partner who showed up for her even 6 times. Maybe that man will show up for her maybe one or 2 times, which is not enough. So if you have like a supportive partner, if you have, good communication, if you can say, hey, I'm just not my best right now. I'm hurting with this. I'm grieving this. I'm suffering with this. And your partner can say, all right, well, let's figure it out. Like, what do we need to do? What do you need? How can I support you? Like, how can I show up for you? If you have a partner like that, you don't leave that relationship. You stay in there and you support each other, and you heal. But if you have the other relationship where you're like, man, I'm depressed right now, and they're just like, all right, get over it. Or I'm really sad. My grandfather passed away and I don't really know how to grieve. And they're just like, people die every day. Then it's like, that space isn't really conducive to like the transition that your soul needs. And so I just wanted to say that because it's not black or white. It's not yes or no.
No. It's not about leaving the relationship because you need to go on your own soul's path. Like you said, you hopefully will know that if your relationship is, I guess what Terri Real just told us on the IG Live we just did with him a few hours ago. If you have really considered this relationship and you look at it this way, are you willing to grieve everything you will lose if you stop you end that relationship? Or is the pain greater if you leave the relationship or whether you stay? That's one of the indicators that he uses when he's working with his clients. I thought, oh, wow.
That's deep.
So
I like that.
Let's talk about self-love. We at Real Love Ready are so excited to be hosting In Bloom, a love and relationship summit, April 14th and 15th, 2023 in Vancouver, BC. Join us for an insider pass to the most trusted relationship expertise, an intimate weekend of in-person or virtual learning, growth, and community. We're bringing you the insights and tools you need to learn and bloom in your relationships. Head over to realloveready.com to learn more and get your tickets. We truly hope to see you there. What is your definition, or what would you say is the first step to self-love?
To consider your soul.
Yeah.
That's a simple definition, to really consider your soul. I think there's so many different things, pillars of life where we have to make decisions, finances, relational, your career, vocation, even down to where you live, how you dress, also it's like varying degrees of importance or non-importance. For example, self-love to me today could have been, I was doing this with you. I could put on like my nice shirt and tie. I got like a red tie I wanted to wear. I got a nice blazer. That would have been really good for me. But I've been sick, for the last week, and I feel much better today in this really nice hoodie, and
Yes, you
and
want to be
so
cozy. That's
it's
taking care of
just,
yourself. That
yeah,
really
I
is.
just
That's
wanted to
listening.
be,
That's listening to
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, like I just wanted to be cozy. Like I went for a
Yeah.
walk, before I talked with you to, just get my brain good and get my energy flowing. Made myself some tea, just really tried to take care of myself. So like today, self-love for me is just nourishing my body, nourishing my mind because I'm getting over a sickness. But uh, a year from now, when I'm negotiating the contract for my next book, self-love might be telling my agents, hey, we need to make $1 million off of this. Like we can't settle for the contract we got before. So it might be that. Self-love might be, damn, I'm feeling really isolated. All I'm doing is working. You know what? I need to see my buddies. Like, I need to set
Mm-hmm.
up a date with my friends so we can go to dinner and so we can be in community and space. So self-love, it's tending to your soul. It's
Yeah.
tending to your heart. And then the varying degrees of it, like I say, life is nuanced and it's colorful. So we figured that out from the day to day, but essentially it's just tending to your soul.
Yes. I think there's just so much talk about improvement and being better. And I understand that. I understand this idea because I do strive to be like the best person that I can be, the best mom, the best wife, the best friend, all of those things. And the best in my job, right? Just showing up as my best self. But you say self-love is built by accepting yourself as you are right now. It's not about like constantly improving, which I think is right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what you're saying because here's the thing. If you have contentment for who you are and where you are now, and you build from contentment, what is the result? More contentment. If you're angry and pissed off about who you are now and what you've allowed, what you've created, and you create from the energy of anger, you're just creating more anger. And so what I'm looking for is a peaceful transition. Now, I shouldn't even say peaceful because it may not be peaceful, but I'm looking for a transition away from, that state of being, that state of mind. So if you're recognizing like, oh man, I fucked my life up. This is things that you hear people say. I fucked my life up. I did this, I did this, I did this. Okay. Well, yeah, be accountable for it. Sure. I like that. But now ask yourself what's available. What's available to you? You made mistakes. Just like every human being, I think was it Neil Tyson deGrasse? I think he said over 1 billion people have lived, right? So if over 1 billion people have lived, that means that there's been billions upon billions. I don't know what comes after billion. Is it trillion? Trillions of mistakes. So making a
Mm,
mistake is natural to the human condition. And so
it sure
why
is.
are
Yeah.
we conditioned to think that okay, we've made a mistake, that we have to push ourselves down further in some shame spiral, that we have to push ourselves and make ourselves feel unworthy of the healing, of the restoration, of the comeback story, of the incline. Like we're worthy of that. Like you're worthy of the restoration. Just because you made a mistake, just because you hurt somebody, that doesn't mean you self-sabotage or keep yourself the worst you can be. You just accept yourself. You just accept yourself. And when you accept yourself, the shame that is in a lot of people's story comes up. It comes up naturally. For example, I'll give you an example. When I was 14 years old, going into high school, I used to pee in the bed. By 14, you should be completely potty trained. You shouldn't be peeing in the bed. I had a lot of shame about that when I was 14. Now, this version of me, 20 years removed from high school, knows that that version of me was going through trauma. I was afraid of being
Yes.
attacked while I was asleep. My body was reacting to my environment. Because I have that information, and now because I have space away from that, I don't have that shame in my body anymore. In fact, I have compassion now.
Mm,
Compassion means more love, more gratitude, more understanding. And so that only occurred through self acceptance. Without the self acceptance, your transition just won't happen. Now, a lot of the times, like you say, we want to go better. We don't need to be better. We need to be in full acknowledgement of what is. The only way you heal is to acknowledge what is. Like your wounds have to be seen. They have to be witnessed. They have to be acknowledged. If they're not, they grow. And they grow in silence. And the ones that grow in silence are the wounds that lead us into our addictions. Whether it's porn, whether it's gambling, whether it's sex, whether it's sugar, whether it's consuming too much, shopping habits, drugs, hurting people. If you take your wounds and you allow them to be witnessed by a mature person or people who can witness it, because not everybody can witness it. Like the person who's hurting you, the person who is abusing you, doesn't have the capacity to witness your wounds. You know, but a therapist, a woman's group, a men's group, your coaches, maybe not everybody you work with, but maybe there's at least one person that maybe you work with, a counselor, right? There's people who can witness you. And maybe they don't hear you out, but maybe you hear them out. And that's why we have podcasts, music, concerts, and sometimes the music or a movie can describe what you went through, and it can make you feel seen. And it's like, damn, okay, that moved me. You know, that moved me. Like someone else experienced that. I'm not alone. A lot of the times our suffering it's like this weird cycle where it's like, no one knows the pain that I'm going through. So I'm going to keep it to myself. But the truth is there's millions of people who know what you went through. Yes. And the second you say, this is my struggle, you're going to have people coming out from under bridges, jumping off of cliffs, obviously with a parachute, coming out of the water just to find you and say, hey, I went through that too. I went through that too. Yes. Thank you for being brave and speaking up. And now we heal together. Healing is witness. Healing is with your eyes.
There's a story that you tell in the book about when you had an injury. And before your injury, you know, your physical fitness was, you know, you were at the gym all the time. You were, you know, the best shape. And you went through this period where you couldn't work out, you couldn't exercise, but you're eating like you were before. You end up gaining weight. And you went into this period of shame, this time of like deep shame around that. And your natural inclination was to isolate. And so, and you said you would wait till evening when nobody you knew was going to be at the gym. you're just literally isolating and being alone and in shame and all these, which is, I think, a lot of people would go to that place. And then it wasn't until you reached out to your buddy and said, like, this is where I'm at. I need your help. You did reach out and say, like, I've been in this place of shame, and I think what I need to do is reach out. You knew that. And he said, come to my gym. Like, just surround yourself with other people. And I just think that was just a really great story of how when we are in pain, how important it is to reach out, even though it doesn't seem like that's the last thing you want to do sometimes. Right?
Someone witnessing you will heal you.
Yeah.
And they're not even doing, the work or any effort. Just them answering the phone, returning a text, returning a call. That's just enough, just for them to see you. The real work is when you say, hey, I'm going through this. I'm struggling with this. Exactly. That's the hardest part. And as soon as you get there, it's like, okay, I can heal now. Like, I'm good now. I let them know that I'm going through, I'm suffering with this or that. Now it's easy, relatively speaking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Sylvester, I love so in the book you talk about, this is Loving Yourself Properly. That's the book that I was talking about. So you talk about shame-based thinking and how we can be consumed by shame-based thinking. It's like these unlimited thoughts, limited beliefs that maybe were passed down from us that we still are living these limiting beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. And you tell the story. And so you say, when shame is on, love is off. And really, it's about reconditioning your thoughts, reconditioning your mind, right? Like, and you do affirmations on a regular basis. And the book is full of affirmations, which I think are beautiful. So tell us about your ritual, your daily how do you have, how have you implemented affirmations in your own life? And how has that changed how you
Yeah,
operate?
affirmations for me started when I was an athlete, when I was playing sports. And every moment is a consistent challenge. I played football and I ran track. Track was just really a consequence of playing football. Wanted to get better at football, so I knew that if I just stayed in track and field, I would get faster. Um, I would have more lung capacity, which means I could stay in the game the whole time. Because that was my whole goal. I want to stay in the game the whole time. And it's like with sports, you have the like sports is just like when you're reading a book or watching a movie. Every protagonist, they have an inner conflict that they have to conquer, and then they have an external conflict. And they do not conquer the external conflict until they conquer the inner conflict. So when you're playing sports against people who are bigger than you, stronger than you, faster than you, better than you, right? Everyone, I don't care who you are, there's someone that's somewhere in that dichotomy. And so you first really have to conquer yourself when you're playing sports. Like you actually have to conquer who you are. Like you have to become one, with your shadow, with your darkness, with your weakness, so you can understand, who's showing up to the table. So now you can conquer your enemies, opponents, the quest, the journey, whatever we want to call it. And so I feel like through sports, you really learn affirmations. Like, I can do this. I got this. I'm ready for this. This is my time. This is my opportunity. I trained for this. I showed up for this. I ran at 6 a.m. in the morning. I stayed late and trained. Like, for example, and these are things I would say to myself. I remember in my junior year of high school, my coach said to me, he says, my best friend, his name was James Tabato. He was like 6'2", 210 pounds. And now as a senior, this is like, no. This was our senior year. This was our senior year. And, that's really good height and weight for a football player in high school. And so he's getting letters from all these colleges, and they're like, hey, we're just letting you know we got your eye on you. We're recruiting you. We're offering you a scholarship to come to our school. And I remember, seeing James get these letters, and I wouldn't get any letters. And I just remember feeling envious, like angry. Like, why is he, not that he didn't deserve it or that he wasn't worthy, but why is he only getting it and not me? That's how I felt. Because I felt like, yeah, he was a better student than me. He was bigger than me, stronger and faster than me, but I was a better football player than him. That's how I felt in my heart. This was my
Mm-hmm.
best friend in high school. And I went and asked my coach. I said, Coach, why does James get all these letters? Like, what is he that I'm not? Like, what is he doing that I'm not doing? How do I put myself in a position so I can get the letters because I want to go to college? I would like to play college football. What do I have to do? And my coach is going to sound like a hater, but he's not. He wasn't a hater. I'll tell you what he was. I'm going to tell you what he said, and then I'm going to tell you what he said, what he was. He said, Sly, you have to understand Division I schools, they don't want guys like us. James is 6'2", 6'3". We're 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
James has a 30 plus on his ACT. What did you get? I'm like, Coach, don't ask me that. I got a 19. Like,
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, when I was in high school, I got the same thing. And he was like, people like us, we don't go on to play college football. So just appreciate your last year here as a high school senior, and you'll go to college and you'll have fun in college. And I remember just feeling so crushed
Mm-hmm.
because I'm looking to this man and I'm like, dude, you're the head coach of the football team. You're supposed to be the one who makes me dig deeper to find my greatness. You're supposed to be the one to encourage me, to push me, to tell me what's possible. But he didn't use that language. He told me what I couldn't do. And my soul knew that was bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
As he was saying it, the affirmations were coming through my head. No, don't listen to him. You can do this. You are big enough. You are smart enough. You are strong enough. You are fast enough. I remember, I'm actually getting goosebumps right now because I feel like I'm on that field. It was like 90 degrees. We had black helmets on. 90% humidity in this middle of the summertime in Palatine, Illinois. The field was right across the street from my house. I used to hop a fence to get to the field and go to the high school. And I can't believe we had black helmets in the middle of the summer, just attracting that heat. I remember just dripping, just sweat was dripping. We're in the middle of a practice. Practice may have just ended because I remember seeing James get the letter, and I went to my coach. And so from there, I committed the rest of my senior year every day in my journal, because I would journal every morning. So I would go to the gym every morning, and then when I got done at the gym, I would journal. And that's when I really started honing the practice of writing affirmations. And it was really like, hey, I'm going to be a college football player. I can do this. Okay, we're going to be a college football player. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a Division I school. That's what we want to do. We're gonna walk onto the team. If they offer us a scholarship, great. We're gonna earn our spot. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be a Division I football player. That's what we're gonna do. And I knew that I wanted to be an author. So we're gonna study communications. We're gonna study psychology. We're gonna take all the writing classes. We're gonna take all the poetry. We're gonna take all the classes that teach you how to write, whether it's a book, whether it's scripts. We're gonna do everything because I knew I wanted to do these two things. I wanted to be an athlete, and I wanted to write books at some point when I was done with sports. I just knew it. My soul knew it. And so pretty much the routine that I developed in high school is I would get up, I would go work out at the high school before school. Now, we weren't required to do that. That was just me, getting what I needed to get the best out of my body. My coaches already told me I'm too small and I'm not strong enough, so I got to make myself strong. So I go work out Monday through Thursday. Fridays we had our football games. So I would work out Monday through Thursday. My lunch break, now, when you're a senior at school, you can have off-campus lunch. So, and a lot of my teammates, they had cars and Jeeps and stuff. So, we'd be at like the Wendy's parking lot with our jerseys, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I gave that up. And I just said, you know what? No more lunch period for me. And what I did was I went down to the film room every day, Monday through Friday, and I would watch film. I would watch the mistakes, right? Because what my coach said, you're not the biggest, you're not the strongest, you're not the fastest. Okay, coach, you didn't say that I wasn't the smartest. See, there's this thing called a brain here. So although I may not be the best athlete, I can be the smartest athlete on the field every single time. And so I recognized that that was my gift. My intellect was my gift. And I'm still very athletic, but through his eyes, I wasn't as athletic as he wanted me to be. So I said, okay, cool. So here's what I did. I learned every position on the football field. Now, the reason I did that is because he had me as a third string backup. What do you think happened? The first string running back tore out his knee. Well, who knows all the plays? Sly knows all the plays. How does Sly know all the plays? Because he committed himself every lunch period, instead of partying with people, to studying. So now we're in the game, and coach is like, hey, Anthony just got hurt. Anthony LaCapra, he was a sophomore elite athlete. They're like, Anthony LaCapra just got hurt. We need another running back. I put my helmet on and just ran out. I'm like, I'm not even about to give you the opportunity to tell me no, because I already know how you view things in life. Like, you already view things from a limited perspective. Yeah. So I run out. I get in the huddle, and the quarterback, he was a junior. His name was Todd. Cool dude, really cool dude. And he's like, okay, Sly, you got this? I'm like, let's go. I was like, call my number right now. He calls a play, 22 Kaz, which essentially means running play to the right. So, we go line up, and this is the power of affirmations. This is the power of imagination. This is the power of believing in yourself. Before that play even happened, I saw it happen in my eyes, in my head, 100 times. 100 times. I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. So then as the play happens, it's all slow motion. There's no anxiety. There's no fear. I already put myself in this state by using affirmations, by breathing. Like, I will walk before the games, I would walk into the end zone, and I would close my eyes and I would just breathe. And I didn't know at the time that this was called meditation, but I would close my eyes and just breathe. I would just breathe into my body, breathe into the presence, and I would imagine myself doing whatever it is I wanted to do. So when we ran that first play, he handed me the ball, juked the guy, boom, boom, got like an 8-yard gain. Not a big deal in the grand scheme of football, but it's a successful play. So my very first play was a successful play. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, I've arrived. I'm about to take this shit over, is what I told myself. Like, I'm taking this over, right? So we lose the game, come over on at the end, and my coach is like, hey, I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of you. You showed me a side of you that I didn't know was in you. And I was like, thanks, coach. And I told him, I said, that talk we had over the summer really motivated me, you know? And he said, all right, keep going. And so then after that moment, you know, my coach was my best friend after that moment. He would always check in on me like, hey, how are you doing? He would never yell at me. He would never scold me. He would never put me down after that, because I showed him that, like, I had a vision that was bigger than where I was at, you know, and I showed him that I was ready for it. So from there, that's how the affirmations really started, because that was your question. I hope you remember. That was your question.
I do remember.
Okay. And then from there, it evolved. So when I got to college, it evolved because, you know, I had a lot of trauma. And now I leave the one thing that I felt like which saved my life, which was sports. But when I got to college, I wasn't on the football team right away. I had to walk onto the football team, meaning I had to try out. So I had a lot of uncertainty, and I didn't know if I was going to get on the team. I knew in my heart, but obviously you don't know in real life, like if it's gonna happen. And so I got back in my notebook, and I'm talking about every day, front and back. If you pull out a college rule notebook, I think there's 180 pages, and I believe there's either 29 or 30 lines. And the only reason I know that is because I would write front and back, you know, front and back. And the way I would write, I would just free write. I wouldn't really look at what I was writing, and then I would just count. I had like a cadence, you know, like one, and that just meant one line. Two, four, you know, and each day I would come in and I would say, okay, when I open this notebook, I have a certain target. So it was 18, 25, 30. Like I would just pick a number and write till I hit that line. And that's when I really got to learn that, like, okay, I have what it takes to be an author. Like, because I can prolifically write, whether it's writing a scene, writing an emotion, writing a story, writing a concept. Like, that's when I learned, I'm like, okay, like I actually can do this. Like, I can really do this. So, yeah, great question. Thank you. You sent me down a beautiful rabbit hole that just brought me so many memories that I feel like are important, especially for the listener, because I feel like there's so much we can extract, you know, from that story that we can integrate.
I agree. What I got, and what I do get from listening to you and talking to you and reading your books is, it really it comes down to practice, right? Like you can't get like going, one of the things you say, Sly, is you got to get your reps in, right? And that's a gym term. And how are you supposed to get better at anything, really, even when it comes down to affirmations? It's like the more you do them, the better you're going to get. And it requires showing up for yourself and practice, right?
You know, it's so funny. You're making me think about my son. He's 3, and he has this concept that the first time he does something, he's supposed to be prolific and elite at
he's
it.
supposed to be really good.
And if it doesn't work, he throws it. Like the other day he was trying to eat something, and you know, if you pick up a spoon, you got to have a certain finesse to it, you know, to pick up the spoon, pick up what you're eating, balance it, get it into your mouth, you know, like there's a little finesse that's required here. And so he's trying to like shovel the food, and I'm like, baby, you gotta be a little more patient here. You gotta eat this a little bit slower. And then so he picks up the liquid. Oh, he was eating miso soup. We had some Japanese food. We're eating some miso, and you know, he tries to get the miso. He turns too fast. Miso comes all over his shirt everywhere, and he's just like, ah! He rages, throws the spoon, and I'm telling him, I'm like, buddy, you gotta just practice, man. It's okay that you got miso all over your shirt. It's okay. You haven't done this a million times, but allow yourself to practice. And he's like, practice, Daddy? I said, yeah, allow yourself to practice. Go pick up your spoon and let's just try it again. If you need help, ask me for help. You don't have to do it by yourself. And he's like, okay, all right, Daddy. So then he like does it, and he gets it after a few more tries, you know, 3 or 4 more tries. He gets it. And then he's like at peace. So it's like, why do we lose that? You know, as adults, why do we lose that? Like, we still, as adults, are going to have to practice. We're going to spill the soup on our shirts in life. And we're going to have to go. We can't throw the spoon. You have to pick it up and you just have to keep trying. You got to get your counsel. You got to get counsel. Hey, can you help me with this? I'm really messing up my shirt. Can you help me? Like that never ends.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I could talk to you for hours more, and I love your stories, Sylvester, and I really appreciate you coming on. And I invite everybody that's listening to get your books, like any of your books, because I mean we've read 2, and I'm like, whoa, they're fantastic. And you've got 7 others, and you said you're working on another one.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned Hay House and Louise Hay. I'm signed to Hay House.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I'm signed to Hay House, so I'm working
Wonderful.
on. So they actually bought my book Care Package, the Care Package book. I signed 2 book deals with them. So they have the Care Package book is going to come out this year, re-releasing it. It's going to come out in August.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's cool. It's really cool to like independently publish a book, and then the biggest personal development self-help company in the world is like, hey, we need that. We need you. Like, come be on our team.
Wow.
So they're re-releasing, they're editing it right now. They're going to put a new cover on there. I added some more quotes in there and added some more words in there. So really excited about that. It's like one of the biggest things that ever happened to me in my career. And then I'm working on a new book that will come out next August for my birthday. So I got 2 books coming out. And then, I'll tell you a little bit about the new book. At least I'll tell you one of the things at least one of the principles of it. Because I'm still working on the title. Let's speak this into the universe, okay? I believe that I have a title that will help this book be a New York Times bestseller. Okay? I believe that. Now, look, titles are important. Like the quality of the book matters, but titles are important too.
Yes.
And I want to share with you one of the principles of the book that I'm working on. Okay. What do you want? I'm asking you, what do you want?
You're asking me that question, what do I want?
Yep, what do you want?
One of the things I want is to sell out our summit on April 15th. Definitely.
Okay. So, what I want you to do then is 2 things. First of all, I want you to be a home for that idea. A lot of the things that we crave are external, but it only comes to us when we become a home for that idea, when we become a place of welcome. Mm-hmm. When we become a place of welcome for the thing that we want, the universe, the God, the spirit, the energy, the cosmos gets behind that idea, empowers it. It's like if you get in a raft and you just sit there, you won't be in the same spot. Like that river's going to move you, right? So we have to be a home. We have to be a raft. And what that means is fully embodying the thing that you want. What do you want? Okay, you want to sell out your show, you're going to do it. Okay?
I feel like I'm already there. I'm living it.
Good.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Is that what you mean by being a home for it? Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'm embodying it. I am
embodying it. And then the second thing is I want you to tell someone about it every day.
Yes.
Every day. And it, obviously it can vary. It can say, hey, I'm going to sell this thing out. It can be that, or it can be telling people, about your event. But I want you to tell someone about it every day. And if you can't find an audience, because some people can't find audience for the thing, I want you to write it down. On the days when you don't have an audience for the thing that you want to embody, I want you to write it down in your journal. Every day.
Yes. Okay.
It works. From a neuroscience perspective, it helps us rewire our brains to becoming a place of welcome for the thing that we want. It helps us it helps us remove the restrictions that we may have when we say, hey, This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Like, this is what I want.
Beautiful. I love it. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Sylvester. I really our conversation was a gift. And I know that our listeners are going to love it too. And I just so appreciate you and our time today.
Thank you for the space. I appreciate it. I appreciate just collaborating with you over the years, and just you getting to know me and you giving me the opportunity to speak, and the thoughtfulness that you have, the questions that you have, and then also I appreciate you giving me opportunities to work with you and your company because I love the mission that you have, and I'm just so grateful and humble. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
Please visit realloveready.com to become a member of our community. Submit your relationship questions for our podcast experts at reallovereadypodcast@gmail.com. We read everything you send. Be sure to rate and review this podcast. Your feedback helps us get you the relationship advice and guidance you need. The Real Love Ready podcast is recorded and edited by Maya Anstey. Transcriptions by Otter.ai and edited by Maya Anstey. We at Real Love Ready acknowledge and express gratitude for the Coast Salish people, the stewards of the land on which we work and play, and encourage everyone listening to take a moment to acknowledge and express gratitude for those that have stewarded and continue to steward the land that you live on as well.